Yeah, good afternoon, students. It's my pleasure to introduce this two-dimensional arrays in this particular video session. So, in the previous classroom discussion topic, we had a discussion on one-dimensional arrays and how we can initialize this one-dimensional arrays, and we had a discussion on different types of application programs related to this one-dimensional arrays. So now today we would like to discuss about the two-dimensional arrays. Introduction part we will discuss that. Now I would like to share my screen. So the topic for today's discussion is 2D arrays. So the objectives of this today's session is that the session will develop the students' knowledge on two-dimensional arrays, how we can declare the two-dimensional arrays, and how we can use these two-dimensional arrays to store the matrix values that we are going to discuss. So the outcome of this today's session is that after completion of this session, students will be able to develop the code in C language by making use of this two-dimensional array concept. So a two-dimensional array can be call it as a matrix representation of the data, where we are representing or storing the data in the form of rows and columns. So the data in these arrays can be accessed through or specifying the row index as well as the column index. So the syntax for declaring the two-dimensional array is goes like this. It is very similar to this one-dimensional array declaration. Only the extra thing is that we have to specify the second size. We have to specify that. So that is nothing but here data type and then array name and how many number of rows are there and how many number of columns are there, that we are specifying here. So the number of rows and number of columns. So for example, if you want to declare a two-dimensional array which we want to store as integer values, we can take it as int and b is the array name, then 2 by 3. So this is what the number of rows and number of columns. So the meaning of the above representation is that so the memory allocated for this b is of type integer. So all are integer variables. The data is being represented in the form of 2 rows and 3 columns. Basically here we have, this is row 0 and this is called it as a row 1. Okay, the horizontal ones are called it as rows, and this is the vertical ones are called as columns. So this is column 0, this is column 1, and then column 2. So this we can specify it as with two subscripts, row 0, column 0, b of 0 comma 0 element. This is b of 0 comma 1 element. This is b of 0 comma 2 element. As similar to that, here b of 1 comma 0 element, first row, 0th column, first row, first column, and then first row, second column. So like this, the data can be stored logically in the form of rows and columns. This is what we are calling it as a matrix, or we can call it as a table. Generally, these 2D arrays are also be called it as tables, we can say it as. So because the data will be arranged in the form of rows and columns. So now we will take one example program here, how we can read the elements into the matrix. That is also called it as inserting the elements into a two-dimensional array. So first of all, we need to insert the data in both rows and columns. So for this, we use the concept of nested loops we will use here. So here we are declaring this B, which is an array of 2 rows, 3 columns. Now we are asking the user to enter the elements into 2D array. So this first loop, outer loop, is for representing the navigating with the rows. Okay, how many rows are there? We have 2 rows are there. So for I equal to 0, I less than 2, I plus plus. And this loop is inner loop is used for navigating with the columns in each row. So how many columns we have? 3 columns are there. So for j equal to 0, j less than 3, j plus plus. Then scanf percentage d, we are trying to read an element into ith row, jth column, ampersand b of I comma j. So this is a loop which we are using for nested loop, which we are using for reading the elements into the two-dimensional array. As similar to that, if you want to display the values, what we are going to do here is that onto the screen, just you can use in place of scanf, you can use printf, then it is going to print the value stored in this particular matrix. So printf percentage d, you can write it as what we are calling it as b of simply. So as similar to that, you can make use of this all the concepts which we are calling it as. So b of ij, then it is going to print ith row, jth column element, it is going to print. So like this you can use in place of scanf, you can use printf, you can use here. So this is what we are calling it as the outputting or displaying the two-dimensional matrix elements onto the screen. So this particular program shows how we can add the two given matrices. This is one important application where we can use these 2D arrays. So we are declaring that how many rows are there and how many columns are there, because in order to perform the addition of two given matrices, we are assuming that the two matrices are compatible. That means they are having the equal size, then only we can perform the addition. So we are taking the number of rows and number of columns. Okay, and then we are asking the user to enter the first matrix elements. So for I equal 0, I less than or I plus plus. For j equal 0, j less than C, number of columns is C, and j plus plus, scanf percentage d, ampersand a of j. So similar type of loop, similar type of nested loop we can use for reading of the second matrix elements. So second matrix is B here, first matrix is A. Fine. So after reading these two matrix elements, now we are adding the two matrices. So for example, this is 1, 2, 3, 4. This is the first matrix, A matrix, and this is the what we are calling it as matrix A elements, if you assume that, and this is a B matrix, for example. So if you assume that B matrix is having these elements as 2, okay, and then 1 and 5, and then here we have 3, for example. So because these two matrices are of same size, then it is compatible for addition. So A of this element 1 and the B of 0 comma 0, this element, these two has to be added together. These two has to be added together to get the resultant matrix C element matrix, that is nothing but so 1 plus 2, which we are calling it as 3. So that we will get here. And similarly 2, okay, so 2 plus 1 here we will get, and then 3 plus 5, okay, so 3 plus 5 here we will get, and then 4 plus 3 we will get here. So this is what how you are doing that. So A of 0 comma 0 plus B of 0 comma 0, C of 0 comma 0 is equal to, fine, that is what we are doing here. Sum of ij is equal to A of ij plus B of ij. This we are doing to compute the summation. Then after that, this is a loop we are using to print the resultant matrix after getting this summation. Okay, so that we are using here. Same loop here we are using as similar to that what we have used in reading of the matrices. Fine. This is an example showing how we can read and how we can display that result and how we can compute the addition. Fine. So I hope in the similar lines you can do the program on subtraction of two given matrices. Okay. I think you will do that program. It is very simple. Only one change in this addition program. So in place of plus, you can just replace with minus, then you can get it as a subtraction of two given matrices. Fine. So now the reflection spot here. In this particular question, so identify the wrong way of declaration of 2D array from the following. So what is the wrong way of declaration? Anyone please? So the answer is this C is the wrong way of declaration, because here when you are declaring a two-dimensional array, the number of columns, it is mandatory. Okay, so the specification of the number of rows is optional, but the specification of the number of rows is mandatory. So that is the reason all these three declarations are correct. But here the declaration C is a wrong declaration. So after completion of this session, student will be able to develop the code in C language using this two-dimensional array concept, that is the LOs are revisited here. Now coming to the summary of this today's session, so we had a discussion on how a two-dimensional array can be declared. So generally the arrays are nothing but it is a collection of similar data type elements which are stored in contiguous memory locations. And arrays are derived data types in C programming language. Generally, these two-dimensional arrays are also known it as matrices or tables. And to access an element from a two-dimensional array, we need to specify two subscripts, that is the row index as well as the column index. For example, if you are printing %d, printf %d a of 2 comma 1, it indicates that row 2 column 1 element we are trying to print that. So this is what we had a discussion on this particular today's session. So this is a lecture level practice problem. You are trying to develop a C program for multiplication of the two given matrices. Okay, so try to check the compatibility whether the two given matrices are compatible for multiplication or not. So if it is compatible, then you can go for multiplication. Otherwise, just you display the message the given two matrices are not compatible for addition multiplication. Fine. So any doubts you have, hope it will be clear. Okay, so thank you one and all.